be to be like, if there was some way to like sneakily verify how much someone likes something, then that would be one. Like if you
get
know,
them to try on the blouse, get them to try on the house,
right? Or like if you know that your dad likes a certain kind of car, like has a dream car.
Yeah.
If you know that someone's got that type of situation going on, or that like your sister has always XYZ, then that's like I think an acceptable thing to surprise someone with. But buying someone a house, or there's something that's like a bit controlling about being like, this is your house and you don't have any say in the matter.
Yeah. Do you know who Mr. Beast is?
No.
He's this YouTube guy who's just like really well known for just giving a stranger $10,000. Or
Where does he get the $10,000?
so like at this point he makes enough on YouTube and probably through sponsorship and stuff that like now he can do those kinds of things. And there's definitely been episodes where like he's given people houses. And there's this one that I saw where, was it like a homeless guy? If he wasn't homeless, he was like living in this really terrible apartment. Oh, and I think he was being like evicted. And I forget how they knew this guy, but like they picked him up from some, like one of them had to like hang out with him all day while they rearranged, like while they like went to the store, got a bunch of things like for the house or the apartment or whatever it is that they had bought, and then they filled it and like made it nice, and then they brought the guy back and it was like presumably just to like hang out with him, and they were like, this place is yours. And that, I guess, I can see how that would be. It wasn't like that big a change.
Yeah.
He had like nothing to go to, so obviously it's like such a godsend. Yeah, that was really sweet.
Yeah.
But I think, firstly, because it's a stranger, maybe that makes it better. Because presumably he can do anything with the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone were to buy a house for me and it was like, oh my god, a house, and it was like in Montreal or something. What do I do now? Do I go live in the house?
Right.
And I can't sell it. What do I do with it? Suddenly it's like, it's a responsibility and I have to like forever be grateful. I have to like treat it with respect, that gift.
Not if it doesn't, when you touch it, spark joy.
It's in spark joy. Like, actually, I think this is just a really fun idea. If someone like buys you a house and then you put it on the market like next week, you're like, thanks for the money, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that there just is like a lot of ego, I think, involved in. There's certain like wild gestures that have such a like place in our heart. And unfortunately, I kind of think that there's something effed up about a lot of them.
Is it just that they're idea based? They're things we've seen. There's kind of like an idealistic quality to like, what's the biggest thing I could buy someone? It would be a house.
I mean, I'm all for like huge things. It just like it needs to be what the person wants.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I remember I had an ex who I was moving towns here, and he turned up without telling me he was coming, which is like this thing that you're supposed to love, and I was like, like I was at my friend Jackie's house, and he was downstairs, and it was like outside, and I was like, but I'm hanging out with Jackie, and now we're three on three hanging out. It just sounds so stupid, but I was like, okay. But then it turns out that he had come to like help me move, but that meant he like brought boxes and there's all this stuff, and he was like, "Ready, steady, go." You know what I mean? And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!" Like I didn't feel like I was. He was moving me, and I was like, "Wait, I've lived here for like 8 years. You can't put my stuff down." Like that is this like large romantic gesture. Again, I guess it depends on what. Remember the like Valentine's Day thing like a year and a half ago? Is it Valentine's Day?
Wait. I think
Do you remember this? I'm trying not
it
to.
must have been Valentine's Day. It was this,
The like Airbnb thing.
yeah, like I wanted to say actually like a chateau. It was,
Yes.
yeah, what was it?
I don't know, some weird place. But like that's supposedly something that people really want to be suddenly told, "Oh, we're doing this," but like you're disrupting the other person. Like you didn't ask them if they want to do it, and I realize that's the whole point of a surprise. But it's kind of like it's kind of disruptive, or like it's just assuming that what you are doing is better and more important than whatever it is they're doing without you knowing what it is.
Right.
Or like whatever their agenda or plan for their week or life is.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you think like you should just be like, okay, great, this is happening
No,
now?
clearly I don't think
Right. Clearly you don't. I'm trying to think through it. 'Cause I've definitely been like,
That's way too soft.
right. I usually like go, what is this? What are you doing right
Yeah,
now?
like that.
But I'll usually go along with it and then pout in the corner.
It depends on the source also.
Like I remember the one surprise party I ever had, I was not okay with. It was like,
I
I
would not-
don't want these people in my house.
I would not surprise party you. Like that's not a thing. But again, that's kind of like read the fucking room.
But I wish I was the type of person who'd be like, okay,
Okay, but you want.
what's happening now? Like, and could just get like swept up in an adventure. And it's like, get in the car. Where are we going? It's like, we're going to San Francisco. And I'd be like, okay, sure.
You could be that. No?
There's actually, this is making me think of, what's that,
You don't like getting carried away.
I know, but I want to be the kind of person who does.
I think that as a larger life plan, and it doesn't. I think
So you know what? That's the Manic Pixie dream girl. She gets carried away. Anyway. Or she carries away.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying? It's a larger picture.
I was gonna say like you can be that person,
Mhm.
and that is true. You can.
Yeah.
However, I happen to think that as a larger life choice, which it doesn't need to be, that probably whoever would do that would not be the greatest match for you in a larger sense. If we're talking about like, that's a very serious way to look at it, which doesn't need to be.
I don't know why, but I thought of this. What's the Zombie Dolan film about like a trans? What is it?
I do not know.
And it all takes place in Montreal, and it's like colorful and orgasmic.
What?
It's great.
You know what? I still have a ways to go with.
I do too.
Where did Aaron find this gold mine?
I wondered that. I can't believe we didn't ask him.
There are certain things that I absolutely love, and imagining Aaron, looking at the website is very funny, very gratifying to me. Do you know what there are certain things that just make me like love people.
The Haas, anyways.
What?
I think it's the Haas, anyways. I think that's what I'm thinking of. I don't know why, but I was thinking of the Haas, anyways, and there's this like scene where basically this happens.
What happens?
His like girlfriend shows up. I'm pretty sure it happens this way and not the other way around. And they're like, and so they live in Montreal, and it's about an 8-hour drive from Montreal to like New York. And it's supposed to be this like big romantic gesture of like, let's go to New York. And I just remember like in the film, they don't go to New York. And it's basically that, like, no, I'm not fucking going to New York. Like, what are you doing? And I just love the fact that like in a movie where it's so easy to like fall into the dramatic, like the most romantic thing, instead they have this fight in the car about like, no, we're not going to New York. And they don't go to New York.
Mm. Yeah, I guess I've been like involved with people who are more prone to this kind of behavior.
Yeah.
And I have gone along with it, and it has been lovely. But it does require a significant amount of trust. And that can be dicey. So I don't think there's any value to being the kind of person who can go along with it if you're with someone who is untrustworthy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
because
I
then
got-
you'd be like, sure, mister, I will get into your van.
kind of.
Let's go.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But even if it's someone you know really well or are involved with, they may not have eyes on your on your concerns, on your stuff, on your needs, on your.
Yeah.
Especially if you like are needy, in the sense that you don't eat everything.
Yeah, don't take me out to dinner.
Like
No, but yeah, it's things like that.
I can't just go to a place where there's not going to be any vegan stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So if I'm with the kind of person who has definitely like taken all of those things in, then that person I feel like is safe to just jump into a car with.
Right.
And trust that you're not somehow going to get screwed by doing the plan, whatever this plan is that you don't know.
Yeah.
When we were driving around New Zealand, I was in the dark 90% of the time. I had no idea what was going on. Almost ever. And it was amazing and completely lovely and totally fine and whatever. But that's because it was separate from my life. I didn't have like my work or I didn't have any of my stuff.
Yeah.
And I was eating anything and I was drinking, you know what I mean? So like it wasn't very high maintenance in all these ways. But that kind of stuff doesn't like. We got into a bad situation once driving back from Vegas, where I got convinced to go on a short hike, just over, like, come, let's go this way. And me and one other person were like, where? And like, what? How long? Like, what's the deal here?
Yeah.
I was wearing flip-flops. I think so was he, the other guy who was there. And it ended up being a fucking nightmare. We like went down this wildly steep trail, not prepared to hike. We got out of the car on the drive back from Vegas,
Okay.
just like on a side road.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were hot springs at the bottom.
I wonder if I've been on this.
But it was like not the easiest way down.
Were there ropes?
I can't remember. There might have been.
I wonder if I've been on this hike.
But then, like, my phone wasn't charged, and we didn't have anything with us
Yeah.
because the other two of us had no idea what was going on
Yeah.
or what to expect.
Right.
So we ended up with, like, one working cell phone, lost after the sun had gone down, trying to find the way back.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be like, what an adventure!
both of us were like irate.
Yeah.
And I think there was a little bit of like, why can't you guys just be cool? But like, no. Don't take people in flip-flops. Like, just because you don't care that you're wearing flip-flops
Right.
doesn't mean other people don't.
Yeah.
So like that kind of thing. Like, is Janessa gonna be, is she the kind of person who's gonna get stressed by not having a phone charger for the next 12 hours? Like, have you thought about that? Have you? And if you are with someone involved or friends or whatever who you can trust to like know what your needs are, I think those people are safe to go on to be like, sure.
Yeah.
Because the focus of the conversation originally was like, am I the kind of person who would be cool with it? But it also matters who the other person is.
Right. Yeah, like, are you gonna have to like fight tooth and nail to in a way like be on the trip, or are you just like luggage in the back? For some reason, it's making me think of like a camping trip with Evan. I freaked out.
You guys, I think, had a camping trip that I'm vaguely that I was around for
Yeah.
that did not go well because of some like either temperature thing or because of the car being hard or like.
See, okay, so I always wanted to know like what's happening. I need to know what's happening, and even like to an extreme level, he used to get frustrated with me, but he would be like, "Let's go for a walk." And granted, like Toronto isn't that big a city. I know some people think it's a big city. It's not. It's really not. And he'd be like, "Let's go for a walk," and I would be like, "Okay, where are we walking to?" Like I would really need to know that.
Mhm.
And he was like, "Oh, why do you have to know? Let's just go." But it would stress me out.
Yeah, I understand.
And there was a similar quality to like, yeah, we went on this camping trip, and the whole premise was like, I don't know where we're gonna go. Like we didn't even know if we were going east or west.
Right.
So we ended up going to Vegas first, but there was like a big discussion and consideration about that, and I felt like I was ruining the trip by having to plan it. But I was also really pissed off that I had to plan this thing that he had like done. It was like it was his trip, and he got to take credit for it, but I was having to do all the work. So like he did the driving, but then I had to figure out like where we were gonna go and where we were gonna sleep. And that to me is like a really important thing. Like, where am I sleeping?
Yeah, because who would like to know where they're sleeping,
Yeah.
and so then that becomes for you something that like matters, and it's important for the other person to be like, oh, Janessa needs to know where she's
Yeah.
sleeping. So that's a thing that I need to figure out for her to be okay, or she needs. But again, like if it's your idea,
Right. And I do wish I was the kind of person who like felt more safe, that I wouldn't need to be such a like an anxious person. I do wish that I could be like, you know what, it's gonna be fine, and just be like a little bit more chill about certain things. But I'm not that person yet. I wish I could go with the flow more, but I'm not there yet because I don't feel like safe enough as a person.
that also might not be the it doesn't go without saying that should be the destination for you, to be like.
Yeah, it felt like I have to. Felt like he wasn't pulling his weight, and then I was freaking out, and so I was like being even more needy in that situation. So not only did I like need a place to sleep, like I also was like the emotional one.
Mhm.
I had so many needs, like so much.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there was this like one night outside of Sequoia where we got there, and I don't know if you looked this up at all, but we got there and I was like, oh, there's a camping ground, like we should camp here.
Mhm.
and then we couldn't figure out, like, you were supposed to book like so far in advance.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let's just leave, and then trying to find like a campground, and yeah, and I just remember like wanting a plan, like just wanting a definite thing, and he was like amenable kind of to whatever I wanted.
So,
But it felt like I had to decide, and the decision itself was controlling and high maintenance.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, they're like, people are in different situations.
Mhm.
Like, if you don't wear contact lenses, that's a thing you don't have to think about. So, the few times that I've been somewhere and like, do you want to stay the night or something? One of the things is that kind of like having a dog. It's like, no, because like, I don't have stuff for my contacts, and I don't want to sleep in my contacts. It's not good for you. What?
Yeah, definitely. That kind of thing always like stresses me out so much. Like, how are these girls just like falling asleep in other men's beds? Anyway, that's crazy to me.
No, I don't want to talk about this.
Okay.
I was just going to go into a whole thing about it, but we can discuss it later. I don't know if I want it immortalized. Is the thing.
But yeah, contact lenses. I'm serious.
Seriously. So that's just like, or having a dog. It's like if you do, there's a certain thing that needs to happen, and if you don't, there's no way for you to know that. But there should be some way, if it's someone that you are close with or whatever, like it should matter to you that they need contact solution. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be like, oh, I wish we could just go somewhere where you don't have contact. You know what I mean? Like the equivalent of that.
Yeah.
So it's not helpful to be like annoyed with somebody else's needs.
No. In fact, I think you should instead be like, got you. And then pull up your Postmates and be like, yeah, it'll be here in half an hour. No pressure, you don't have to stay here, but it'll be here if you need it. Or something like that. That's just it. It's like, be considerate and then also take some kind of action. Don't just be like, yeah, fine, if you need that thing, you can get it for yourself.
You having fun? It's very fun. I had a really weird trip with an ex of mine to. It was weird in that I wasn't the one who was having an issue. I had like planned the shit out of a trip to Oregon to see the eclipse. Remember the eclipse a couple years
You
ago?
told me about this.
Yeah. And I'm good if I'm the one planning, honestly. Like if somebody, the only problem would be like, which is what I was getting from your story, that there's some premise that you need to not plan, but then, right. So that confuses me.
Yeah.
But I have no problem being in charge.
Hmm.
Because this is part of the control thing, I guess. Like I know that I have my needs on lockdown, and I generally have the other person's as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like a reliable person to be doing the planning.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought through all this shit, including like researching camping in a Prius, the whole fucking thing. I had an airman. I had this whole setup like sweetly figured out. And he didn't like do much by way of planning or anything really. But the day of, like, made a couple of grocery runs or and then spent like a good amount of the trip there, like at least an hour and a half, kind of apologizing for how he hadn't done anything. And he was like, I feel like normally in my other relationships, like I'm the one planning the stuff, and it just feels so weird for somebody else to have done it. And I was like, it's okay. I like doing this stuff. It was my idea to go. I want to say I would have gone anyway. Like, it's fun to plan.
Mm.
But it was like, it seemed like a bit of a burden that I had planned everything. A bit of a burden
For him.
for him.
Yeah. Mhm.
It was an odd situation. I didn't really know what to say.
Like, could he have just done something to make up for it? If he feels like I
thought
want
he
to
did.
do something.
I was just more proactive. Like, it was my idea to drive somewhere.
Yeah.
I definitely looked up like places to park. I'm the one that looked up the Prius camping thing and
Yeah.
figured out that we didn't actually have to pay a gazillion dollars because everyone was charging so much in the line of. It had some fucking crazy word. What's the word for when the eclipse is like full?
Yeah, I'm trying. What was it? What is it called?
It'll come to one of us. But people in that strip were charging like so much for Airbnbs. We literally paid $200 or something to park in someone's
Oh, he's so smart.
backyard. Or some shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so smart, but also like you really need $200 for us.
But I'm sure that's so much better.
It was. I thought so.
I think that's crafty. Yeah.
And I had like got the whole food thing on lockdown because I don't know. I figured it all out because it's fun. I really genuinely like doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
Where was I going with this story? Oh, so
besides
because I
that-
like doing it, I just had done everything. I don't know.
That's what I'm. Yeah, it can be hard to navigate that. If you're like, oh shit, this person did all. It can be hard to like receive. Like, oh shit, like
Yeah.
I got to benefit from this person's like extreme care and planning.
Yeah.
And I got to go along for the ride and not do a whole lot.
Yeah, I think that would be hard for me, honestly.
Yeah. And maybe you would have done it like all by yourself, but still like he got this like easy experience and he didn't have to put a lot of work in.
I had like ordered the glasses.
I don't know what the best person. I think say thank you and like just take note. And then if ever there's like an opportunity for you to give back to that person or to someone else, like remember what it felt like to be given a really beautiful experience. Yeah. That must be fun.
Oh, I love road trips. The same thing happened with Stefan.
Yeah.
Oh my god. We had the greatest time. I went to Sundance, and then my plan, I had decided to drive to Sundance instead of flying, which everybody else was doing.
How long of the drive is that?
So long. I did it in 2 legs.
Okay.
And stayed at some like shitty motel on the way. Like crashed for a few hours and then get there.
Yeah.
I was there for the lab, finished the lab, and I had just met Stefan like so recently before that. And out of nowhere, I was like, "Want to drive around Utah?" And he was like, "Is this a joke?" I got dead, and I was like, "I can't tell if it's a joke either." What do you think?
Yeah.
And he ended up agreeing to. And so he it was super fun. He flew to Salt Lake City. I like drove to Salt Lake City from Sundance.
Right.
Got him, and we went to like all the parks and like meandered back to LA.
That's cool.
And it was, God, Utah, man. Have you ever been to Utah?
Only I've driven through in the winter, and we didn't really look at a whole bunch of
Yeah.
things.
Holy shit. It's so special.
Oh, I want to go traveling now, and it's not the time. Or is it the time?
I mean, that's partly one of the reasons that I'm like, should I drive to the East Coast? Just because I secretly like, I love that kind of stuff. I love being like, what am I going to need? What's going to last long? This many nuts. Like, I don't know. I guess it's feathering. It's nest feathering, maybe.
It's
I made
it's
tacky
fun.
nuts.
It's fun to have a mission.
Yes.
It's so much fun to have a mission,
Mm.
and it's great to like do it with someone because yeah, we're in it together. And then you get there and you're like, yeah, we did it. I don't know. It's very silly, but like so satisfying.
With someone and or for someone.
Mm.
Like, not just for them. Obviously, you were there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it matters. It means a lot when they like. Stefan was super, super appreciative.
Mm.
Because I had already done all of the planning. So I had all the stops like mapped out
Yeah.
because I was going to do it anyway. I'm always going to do it anyway, and then someone's just there.
You would have done it anyway, right?
Yes. I decided to drive to, why would I have driven to fucking Utah?
Right.
I wasn't going to Utah and not seeing all the stuff. Such a special place. The most beautiful place I've ever been is in Utah, actually.
Really?
Yep.
What is it?
It's this one spot in Canyonlands, which is one of the national parks.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, I have pictures, but I don't know that they would ever be able to approximate how amazing the place is. Yeah, it was really lovely. Where is Utah? So there was this like arch. I don't really know how to introduce it so much, like how to describe it. Like I took a panorama, but they never really come out in a way that it's an arch and you can basically see forever and ever and ever and ever through it.
What? That's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this obviously like pictures don't ever,
Yeah.
but like that's part of the
Oh wow.
view looking through it. Yeah.
Oh.
The Mesa Arch. It's really weird for me to know that. Look at that.
Yeah. Wow.
You can somewhat tell how beautiful it is from this picture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was really amazing.
I think the most beautiful place I've ever been to is Iceland.
Yeah. Just in general, Iceland?
Is there a specific area? The thing about Iceland is like it's so tiny actually. You feel like you're on a different planet. And you keep driving and the landscape changes. And you're like, oh, I guess now we're on Pluto. Oh, I guess now we're on Mars. I guess now we're like, yeah. Probably the last few words. Yeah, it's unreal.
Going to see the Aurora Borealis is very high on my.
Oh, I want to do that too.
It's very high on my agenda. So many places to do it.
No, where would you want to do it?
I don't know. Alaska is so easy and accessible, but yeah, I'm not sure.
I always wanted to go to like, I would want to go to like Norway, I think, or Finland. Something like that.
Maybe into Iceland.
The thing about Iceland is like, I would like to go back to this. Because we went in summer, but if you go in winter, obviously it's completely, it's like the opposite experience. And there's like these amazing like ice floes. You get to, like, you just get to see winter and ice and snow, and it's like so gorgeous. However, you definitely need an SUV, which we did not have. Probably can't camp, or maybe you need like a little van or like a trailer. And a lot of people did have those, which would have been so much better actually than what we had. And you're gonna have like 3 hours of daylight or something like that.
Yeah.
So you need to be really prepared.
Yeah. You'd like start to do something and be like, oh, missed it.
It's over.
I guess we have to wait till tomorrow to see what we just drove to.
There's this cliff. Where the hell is this? This is in the West Fjords. There's this cliff. It's the end of the world. It's like the furthest, most western point of Europe. Okay, and it's this cliff with all these puffins. And it's so crazy and bizarre and wonderful and weird. And I remember we got there. The cool thing about going in the summer in Iceland is usually you kind of have like, you have like a deadline, like we got to get there before like sundown or whatever. And in the summer, I remember we got to this cliff at like 10 p.m. at night, and it was bright day. And so we got to hang out there till like midnight and then go camp nearby.
Crazy.
Yeah.
How do people function? In Costa Rica, people were telling us nonstop, me and Aditi, not to drive at night.
Oh yeah.
And we never figured out what it was about. But that was like a weird
People were
thing
just
trying
messing with you. No, I don't know. Is it just sketchy and dangerous at night?
I mean, presumably yes, but I don't know what kind of dangerous.
Right.
So like this one time, that was one of the only times we like screwed up and didn't do this. We drove through a cloud forest. And Aditi was traumatized. A cloud forest is exactly what it sounds like. It's like a forest in the clouds. And it's actually really crazy because it looks like if you were to take a rainforest and put it underwater for like a few years, you know how there'd be like moss on top of moss, like there'd be like, it'd be like having been underwater.
Right.
It's like that because the humidity and stuff is so intense
Yeah.
that it's like everything is underwater.
Oh my god.
It's like a fairyland.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah, I could shoot that too, but
No.
But I don't think that I think that you can tell even less like how special it was.
Oh, it was special. You made it sound like it was a traumatic experience.
Driving back the night was.
Oh, okay.
Because we were driving like down a mountain or something, and the visibility was like this. And Aditi was driving and was so freaked out.
Yeah.
That she was like, I can't see the cat eyes. Like, I can't see the cat eyes, even though they were like the only thing you could see. And you could only see like 3 in front of you. But people were like hurtling, like passing us down the mountain. We were going maybe 12 miles an hour. Seriously.
Yeah.
With hazards and everything on. And people were like flying around us in a way that between like, and you could go off the mountain. So it's not like there's guardrails, and I don't know if these people live here and know every step of it, but like with zero visibility, we're driving like 45. It was terrifying.
Wow.
It was terrifying.
It'd be so easy.
It was really scary. Aditi, like to this day, doesn't like to talk about it. I'm serious. She was very scarred.
It's a good-looking loaf, Aaron.
It's a nice loaf.
Nice loaf.
Oh, apparently the dryer is annoying.
Oh, I think it just ended.
I didn't eat before we did this. Which is stupid.
Do you need to grab a bite or
I
something?
don't know what I need to do. Yeah, I'll just grab some tacky nuts. Like 100, maybe. Okay.
I think I'm in the phase of quarantine where I just want to eat all day. Because I'm just looking forward to the next meal.
That's how people with office jobs are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know that from one of my very few office jobs. Mm. You get there and immediately start speaking for lunch. Can I get sushi again? Okay. I feel bad because my dad's awake. Meaning, I feel like we should hurry up and leave.
So you can watch and okay. It's for you, Mr. V.
Mm. So yesterday we were in war.
Yes.
It was crazy. Pierre is a dumbass. He was walking around like he'd just been hatched.
His mental state is so strange.
It really is very good.
He was
acting like that duckling that just hatched, that gosling.
Yes, he was a gosling. He was on a knoll. He didn't know it was a very important knoll. Apparently, like the deadliest, most important, or like it was like the pivotal place of the battle, actually.
He was Forrest Gumping it hard.
Oh, that's a great way to say it. Yeah. And he was just there with this battery.
Mm-hmm.
I have returned. Okay. Welcome back. Yeah, he was with this battery, and he's just like happy as a clam.
Blissful.
Yeah, just like, oh, can I be here? And at first, all the soldiers were kind of annoyed or weirded out, and then they liked him and they called him their gentleman.
Mm-hmm. And then people started to die.
Yeah, and then people started dying, and it seemed like the more people started dying, like the more energetic and kind of into it everyone became.
Mm-hmm. Bloodlust.
Right. It's just
But then everyone basically died.
pretty much. Did
Around
everyone die?
Pierre?
Yeah, I forget
Around
when Pierre left. Why did he leave?
He had an insane face-to-face because shit was like falling apart.
I thought maybe he just like followed some guy. He was like,
He
I'll
did.
go.
He
I'll
followed
go get
someone to
that.
get the ammunition.
Yeah,
Remember?
yeah, that's right. He's like, I'll go, and the guy's like, no, I'm gonna go. So, but he followed him.
And he gets like lost in the chaos of battle, basically.
Yeah.
And has this ultra dramatic experience when he's trying to find the battery again, where he and a French soldier like catch hold of each other. They both like have each other by the neck, essentially. And then what happened to Jalen McGraw? Shell?
Yeah.
A shell or a
I
cannonball
think they
fell?
both just let each other go. It was like, yeah, there's like a funny thing about like, have I taken this person prisoner that they both had simultaneously?
Yeah. It's really interesting, actually, I thought.
Yeah.
They both like didn't know how they got there or what to do next.
Yeah.
So they were like, right, okay. And booked it in different directions.
Yeah.
And he went back to the battery and like essentially everyone's dead.
Yeah.
And he seems like only now to be getting it.
Yeah. So it was like, I don't know. There wasn't like one moment when he switched. It was just.
It was somewhere in the confusion that happened after the ammunition, like after he went for the ammunition.
Yeah.
We were with Napoleon a bunch, who can't see shit from where he is.
That's right.
Um,
Who's giving orders that can't be carried out. Basically.
yeah, it's just a hot mess, and he goes into the details of how disjointed and unstrategic and coincidental everything is. Because the people running back to report what's going on by the time they get to Napoleon, or by the time the information gets to Napoleon, they've already retaken the bridge that they had arrived to say they lost. It's a mess. It's a managerial mess. And that's where we are.
So we're at book 10, chapter 34. Do you think someone's gonna die?
Yeah. Chapter 34.
Obviously people are gonna die.
People have been dying. Do you think someone's gonna die?
I always just want to know, like, who's gonna die. But no, because this is not George R. R. Martin. I think, and we still have 5 books to go.
Maybe we won't get through it tonight. As if one day would make a difference. Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Chapter 34. Napoleon's generals, Davout, Ney, and Murat, who were near that region of fire and sometimes even entered it, repeatedly led into it huge masses of well-ordered troops. But contrary to what had always happened in their former battles, instead of the news they expected of the enemy's flight, these orderly masses returned thence as disorganized and terrified mobs. The generals reformed them, but their numbers constantly decreased. In the middle of the day, Murat sent his adjutant to Napoleon to demand reinforcements.
Napoleon sat at the foot of the knoll, drinking punch. Also, Napoleon likes his punch the night before a battle, and apparently during the battle.
He's really sick and he's just drinking.
Oh, yeah. It's great. When Murat's adjutant galloped up with an assurance that the Russians would be routed if His Majesty would let him have another division.
Reinforcements, said Napoleon in a tone of stern surprise, looking at the adjutant. A handsome lad with long black curls arranged like Murat's own, as though he did not understand his words.
Reinforcements, thought Napoleon to himself. How can they need reinforcements when they already have half the army directed against a weak, unentrenched Russian wing?
Tell the King of Naples, said he sternly, that it is not noon yet, and I'm already drunk, and I don't yet see my chessboard clearly. Go.
The handsome boy adjutant with the long hair sighed deeply without removing his hand from his hat, and galloped back to where men were being slaughtered.
Napoleon rose and, having summoned Caulaincourt and Berthier, began talking to them about matters unconnected with the battle.
In the midst of this conversation, which was beginning to interest Napoleon, Berthier's eyes turned to look at a general with a suite, who was galloping toward the knoll on a lathering horse. It was Belliard. Having dismounted, he went up to the emperor with rapid strides, and in a loud voice began boldly demonstrating the necessity of sending reinforcements. He swore on his honor that the Russians were lost if the emperor would give another division.
Napoleon shrugged his shoulders and continued to pace up and down without replying. Belliard began talking loudly and eagerly to the generals of the suite around him.
You are very fiery, Belliard, said Napoleon.
It's a war.
When he again came up to the general, in the heat of a battle, it is easy to make a mistake. Go and have another look, and then come back to me.
Before Belliard was out of sight, a messenger from another part of the battlefield galloped up.
Now then, what do you want? Asked Napoleon in the tone of a man irritated at being continually disturbed.
Sire, the prince, began the adjutant.
As for reinforcements, said Napoleon with an angry gesture.
The adjutant bent his head affirmatively and began to report, but the emperor turned from him, took a couple of steps, stopped, came back and called Berthier.
We must give reserves, he said, moving his arms slightly apart. Who do you think should be sent there? He asked of Berthier, whom he subsequently termed that gosling. That gosling I have made an eagle.
Send Claparède's division, sire, replied Berthier, who knew all of the division's regiments and battalions by heart.
Napoleon nodded assent.
The adjutant galloped to Claparède, how would you say that? Claparède's division, and a few minutes later, the young guards stationed behind the knoll moved forward. Napoleon, what the damn hell? Sometimes I feel like my brain breaks from these sentences.
Yeah.
The adjutant galloped to Claparède's division, and a few minutes later, the young guards stationed behind the knoll moved forward.
Okay. So the young guard stationed behind the knoll moved forward.
Sure, the knoll moved forward.
Yeah, the knoll moved.
Napoleon gazed silently in that direction.
No, he suddenly said to Berthier, I can't send Claparède. Send Friant's division.
Though there was no advantage in sending Friant's division instead of Claparède's, and even an obvious inconvenience and delay in stopping Claparède and sending Friant now, the order was carried out exactly. Napoleon did not notice that in regard to his army, he was playing the part of a doctor who hinders by his medicine.
It's like, I haven't talked about doctors for a while.
I haven't talked shit about doctors in like at least 2 chapters. Playing the part of a doctor who hinders by his medicines, a role he so justly understood and condemned.
Friant's division disappeared as the others had done into the smoke of the battlefield. From all sides, adjutants continued to arrive at a gallop, and as if by agreement, all said the same thing. They all asked for reinforcements, and all said that the Russians were holding their positions and maintaining a hellish fire, under which the French army was melting away.
Napoleon sat on a camp stool, wrapped in thought.
Monsieur de Beausset, the man so fond of travel, oh, you remember?
Yeah, I love him. I love him and his love for travel.
Having fasted since morning, came up to the emperor and ventured respectfully to suggest lunch to his majesty.
I hope I may now congratulate your majesty on a victory, said he.
Napoleon silently shook his head in negation, assuming the negation to refer only to the victory and not to lunch. Monsieur de Beausset ventured with respectful jocularity to remark that there is no reason for not having lunch when one can get it.
Go away, exclaimed Napoleon suddenly and morosely, and turned aside.
A beatific smile of regret, repentance, and ecstasy beamed on Monsieur de Beauset's face as he glided away to the other generals.
Napoleon was experiencing a feeling of depression like that of an ever-lucky gambler who, after recklessly flinging money about and always winning, suddenly, just when he has calculated all the chances of the game, finds that the more he considers his play, the more surely he loses.
His troops were the same, his generals the same preparations had been made, the same dispositions, and the same proclamation courte et énergique. He himself was still the same. He knew that, and knew that he was now even more experienced and skillful than before. Even the enemy was the same as at Austerlitz and Friedland, yet the terrible stroke of his arm had supernaturally become impotent.
All the old methods that had been unfailingly crowned with success, the concentration of batteries on one point, an attack by reserves to break the enemy's line, and a cavalry attack by men of iron, all these methods had already been employed. Yet not only was there no victory, but from all sides came the same news of generals killed and wounded, of reinforcements needed, of the impossibility of driving back the Russians, and of disorganization among his own troops.
Formerly, after he had given 2 or 3 orders and uttered a few phrases, marshals and adjutants had come galloping up with congratulations and happy faces, announcing the trophies taken, the corps of prisoners, bundles of enemy eagles. Huh?
The eagles are coming? The eagles are coming?
Is that a word for something else, or is it real eagles? The eagles.
Googling it is not going to help.
No,
Because they'll just be like, here's what an eagle is. Jungle.
It's also a score of 2 strokes in golf. I'm sure that's what it means.
Everything is something in golf.
Bundles of enemy eagles and standards, cannon and stores, and Marat had only begged leave to loose the cavalry to gather in the baggage wagons. So it had been at Lodi, Marengo, Arcola, Jena, Austerlitz, Wagram, and so on. But now something strange was happening to his troops.
Despite news of the capture of the Flèches, Napoleon saw that this was not the same, not at all the same as what had happened in his former battles. He saw that what he was feeling was felt by all the men about him, experienced in the art of war. All their faces looked dejected, and they all shunned one another's eyes. Only a de Beausset. Only a de Beausset.
One of those.
Could fail to grasp the meaning of what was happening.
Right.
Just
if
a
you've ever had,
swipe it.
as you all know, if you've ever had a de Beausset, it's hard to say a de Beausset.
No, I was like, I could say his name 2 seconds ago, but I can't.
Yeah. But Napoleon, with his long experience of war, well knew the meaning of a battle not gained by the attacking side in 8 hours. After all efforts had been expended, he knew that it was a lost battle, and that the least accident might now, with the fight balanced on such a strained center, destroy him and his army.
When he ran his mind over the whole of this strange Russian campaign, in which not one battle had been won, and in which not a flag, a cannon, or army corps had been captured in 2 months, when he looked at the concealed depression on the faces around him and heard reports of the Russians still holding their ground, a terrible feeling like a nightmare took possession of him, and all the unlucky accidents that might destroy him occurred to his mind. The Russians might fall on his left wing, might break through his center. He himself might be killed by a stray cannonball. All this was possible. In former battles, he had only considered the possibilities of success, but now innumerable unlucky chances presented themselves, and he expected them all. Yes, it was like a dream in which a man fancies that a ruffian is coming to attack him and raises his arm to strike that ruffian a terrible blow which he knows should annihilate him, but then feels that his arm drops powerless and limp like a rag, and the horror of unavoidable destruction seizes him in his helplessness.
The news that the Russians were attacking the left flank of the French army aroused that horror in Napoleon. He sat silently on a camp stool below the knoll, with head bowed and elbows on his knees. Berthier approached and suggested that they should ride along the line to ascertain the position of affairs.
What do you say? Asked Napoleon. Yes, tell them to bring me my horse.
He mounted and rode towards Semenovsk.
Amid the powder smoke, slowing, dispersing... Okay.
You didn't do your vocal exercises before, did you?
I didn't. Okay. Oh, I've got vocal exercises. Just in case I was concerned. Amid the powder smoke, slowly dispersing over the whole space through which Napoleon rode, horses and men were lying in pools of blood, singly or in heaps. Neither Napoleon nor any of his generals had ever before seen such horrors or so many slain in such a small area. The roar of guns that had not ceased for 10 hours wearied the ear and gave a peculiar significance to the spectacle, as music does to tableaux vivants, living tableaus. What's a
Tableau vivant? You know.
As music does to
Tableau
whatever's
vivant.
happening?
To, what's it called? Like life tables.
What?
Still life. Still lives.
Still lives.
Lives.
Still lives. Horses' hoofs. Wait, I don't know what's happening. Napoleon rode up to the high ground at Semenovsk and through the smoke saw ranks of men in uniforms of a color unfamiliar to him. He's never seen a Russian before. They were Russians.
The Russians stood in serried ranks. Serried? Ranks behind Semenovsk village and
Close
its
together.
knoll. Okay. Oh, let's see. I'm gonna I hope I really retain these words because it was so impressive. Anyway,
Serried.
what's up with this?
Serried.
Wouldn't that be a good word to know in this time? Let's not all serry.
Well, we're assuming that's a verb. Imagine if you said that at like Trader Joe's and someone was like, serried is an adjective,
But it's you
but
can't
it
just
doesn't
turn it into a
correspond
verb.
to-
Have you read War and Peace? I have actually.
Mhm.
And their guns boomed incessantly along their line and sent forth clouds of smoke. It was no longer a battle. It was a continuous slaughter, which could be of no avail either to the French or the Russians. Napoleon stopped his horse and again fell into the reverie from which Berthier had aroused him. He could not stop what was going on before him and around him, and was supposed to be directed by him and to depend on him. And from its lack of success, this affair, for the first time, seemed to him unnecessary and horrible.
One of the generals rode up to Napoleon and ventured to offer to lead the old guard into action. Ney and Berthier, standing near Napoleon, exchanged looks and smiled contemptuously at this general's senseless offer.
Napoleon bowed his head and remained silent a long time.
At 800 leagues from France, I will not have my guard destroyed, he said, and turning his horse, rode back to Shevardino. You tell him.
You know, Napoleon, you can't win them all.
He
You're just
apparently
a
really
sore
doesn't
loser.
realize that.
This is the first time it's been senseless to you? I guess so. Always.
We were literally just told that that's the
right. Yeah, you can't win them all. That's not how you win a war. This is one battle, remember? It's a battle, not a war.
As she keeps reminding you, it's
Sometimes
a war.
you can lose the battle
A
but
battle.
win the war.
Yes. Come on, Nappy.
Chapter 35.
Who knows if he was even like this? This is Tolstoy's like.
I know! Imagine like
Imagining-
Napoleon was actually a really great fellow. And you're just besmirching him.
I know. This is terrible. This is a horrible and senseless book.
I wonder how the French read this book.
Me too.
Yeah? So they're like,
Probably. Imagine how the Germans do.
oh god.
How do you think it goes over in Germany?
I'm not sure.
Seems important to know. You know?
But definitely. That's the thing I should know, is how is this received in Germany?
I don't. Is that a joke? Because I feel like you should know it, and we need to know it.
Yeah, I don't need to know that Napoleon Bonaparte is his name. But I should know how War and Peace is received in Germany.
Did you think that he had a last name, or like Madonna? He was just like.
I think I had absentia for a while.
Really?
I forgot he had a last name. And that last name is Bonaparte. Napoleon Smith. No, it's Bonaparte.
It is. Chapter 35. On the rug-covered bench where Pierre had seen him in the morning sat Kutuzov, his grey head hanging, his heavy body relaxed. He gave no orders, but only assented to or dissented from what others suggested.
Yes, yes, do that, he replied to various proposals. Yes, yes, go, dear boy, and have a look, he would say to one or another of those about him, or, no, don't, we better wait. He listened to the reports that were brought him and gave directions when his subordinates demanded that of him. But when listening to the reports, it seemed as if he were not interested in the import of the words spoken, but rather in something else, in the expression of face and tone of voice of those who were reporting.
See,
Words.
he knows what to look for.
By long years of military experience, he knew, and with the wisdom of age understood, that it is impossible for one man to direct hundreds of thousands of others struggling with death. And he knew that the result of a battle is decided not by the orders of a commander-in-chief, nor the place where the troops are stationed, nor by the number of cannon or slaughtered men, but by that intangible force called the spirit of the army. And he watched this force and guided it in as far as that was in his power.
Tolstoy is so touchy-feely woo-woo.
Kind of, right?
It's really woo-woo. Yeah. He was like, you know how you win war? Just like, just connect. And like root into, just like ground yourself, breathe, and allow. That's how you fight.
Basically.
So, did you finish that?
I did.
Kutuzov's general expression was one of concentrated, quiet attention, and his face wore a strained look as if he found it difficult to master the fatigue of his old and feeble body.
At 11 o'clock, they brought him news that the flèches captured by the French had been retaken, but that Prince Bagration was wounded. Kutuzov groaned and swayed his head.
Ride over to Prince Peter Ivanovich and find out about it exactly, he said to one of his adjutants, and then turned to the Duke of Württemberg, who was standing behind him.
Will your Highness please take command of the First Army?
Soon after the Duke's departure, before he could possibly have reached Semenovsk, his adjutant came back from him and told Kutuzov that the Duke asked for more troops.
Kutuzov made a grimace and sent an order to Doktorov to take over the command of the First Army and a request to the Duke, whom he said he could not spare at such an important moment, to return to him. When they brought him news that Marat had been taken prisoner and staff officers congratulated him, Kutuzov smiled.
Wait a little, gentlemen, said he. The battle is won, and there is nothing extraordinary in the capture of Murat. Still, it is better to wait before we rejoice.
But he sent an adjutant to take the news round the army.
When Sherbinin came galloping from the left flank with news that the French had captured the flèches and the village of Semenovsk, Kutuzov, guessing by the sounds of the battle and by Sherbinin's looks that the news was bad, he's not listening to a word anyone says.
Nice. You feel your aura. And
He only has one eye, so he just needs to like.
you know, he's probably at an advantage too because he's used to being blind, right? So he doesn't. He feels. the
Sorry,
battle.
how is he used to being blind?
Well, he's like used to like some. He's used to his sight being obstructed in
Yes.
some way.
Obstructed view.
Yeah. This is classic. You give. This is like that Greek dude. You know, it's the person who's blind who has the most vision.
Totally.
Who's the Greek dude? You know,
Majorly.
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, blind seer.
Yeah.
Forget his name.
Yeah.
Guessing by the sounds of the battle and by Sherbinin's looks that the news was bad, rose as if to stretch his legs and taking Sherbinin's arm led him aside.
Go, my dear fellow, he said to Ermolov, and see whether something can't be done.
Imagine if that's the directive that you get from your superior. Go and see if you can do something about it. Why don't you try some shit? That's literally all he's doing.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's leadership.
Kutuzov was in Gorky, near the center of the Russian position. The attack directed by Napoleon against our left flank had been several times repulsed. In the center, the French had not got beyond Borodino, and on their left flank, Uvarov's cavalry had put the French to flight.
Toward 3 o'clock, the French attack ceased. On the faces of all who came from the field of battle and of those who stood around him, Kutuzov noticed an expression of extreme tension. He was satisfied with the day's success, a success exceeding his expectations. But the old man's strength was failing him. Several times his head dropped low, as if it was falling, and he dozed off. Dinner was brought him.
How old is he?
I don't know.
Did he just get very old?
Kind of.
Okay. Adjutant General Voltsogen, the man who, when riding past Prince Andrew, had said the war should be extended widely, and whom Bagration so detested, rode up while Kutuzov was at dinner. Voltsogen had come from Barclay de Tolly to report on the progress of affairs on the left flank. The sagacious Barclay de Tolly, seeing crowds of wounded men running back in the disordered rear of the army, weighed all the circumstances, concluded that the battle was lost, and sent his favorite officer to the commander-in-chief with that news.
Kutuzov was chewing a piece of roast chicken with difficulty and glanced at Voltsogen with eyes that brightened under their puckering lids.
Okay. Voltsogen, nonchalantly stretching his legs, approached Kutuzov with a half-contemptuous smile on his lips, scarcely touching the peak of his cap.
He treated his Serene Highness with a somewhat affected nonchalance intended to show that, as a highly trained military man, he left it to Russians to make an idol of this useless old man, but that he knew whom he was dealing with. Der alte Herr, as in their own set the Germans called Kutuzov.
Who is alt?
I don't know.
Okay.
Serene.
I doubt it somehow.
Such a strange app. Okay. Is
Are you
making-
highlighting passages?
I didn't need to, but it
Did you
highlighted.
really like what?
I really liked all of that. I was
Okay.
like, I'm gonna remember this passage. This is my favorite part of the book.
Okay.
I want to know what Alta is.
I don't know if it's going to turn up in the
In
dictionary.
the Wikipedia, it's a civil parish in Lulé.
That's not helpful.
Ah, is this plugged?
What? It looks like it.
Right? I don't know. Okay. He's making himself very comfortable, thought Voltsogen, and looking severely at the dishes in front of Kutuzov, he began to report to the old gentleman.
Maybe that's what it
position-
means. Old.
Yes. the position of affairs on the left flank as Barclay had ordered him to, and as he himself had seen and understood it.
All the points of our position are in the enemy's hands, and we cannot dislodge them for lack of troops. The men are running away, and it is impossible to stop them, he reported.
Kutuzov ceased chewing and fixed an astonished gaze on Voltsogen, as if not understanding what was said to him. Voltsogen, noticing the old gentleman's agitation, said with a smile,
I have not considered it right to conceal from your Serene Highness what I have seen. The troops are in complete disorder.
You have seen, Kutuzov shouted. Frowning and rising quickly, he went up to Voltsogen.
How dare you? He shouted, choking and making a threatening gesture with his trembling arms. How dare you, sir, say that to me? You know nothing about it. Tell General Barclay from me that his information is incorrect and that the real course of the battle is better known to me, the commander-in-chief, than to him.
Voltsogen was about to make a rejoinder, but Kutuzov interrupted him.
The enemy has been repulsed on the left and defeated on the right flank. If you have seen amiss, sir, do not allow yourself to say what you don't know. Be so good as to write to General Barclay and inform him of my firm intention to attack the enemy tomorrow, said Kutuzov sternly.
All were silent, and the only sound audible was the heavy breathing of the panting old general.
They are repulsed everywhere, for which I thank God and our brave army. The enemy is beaten, and tomorrow we shall drive him from the sacred soil of Russia, said Kutuzov, crossing himself, and he suddenly sobbed as his eyes filled with tears.
Voltsogen, shrugging his shoulders and curling his lips, stepped silently aside, marveling at the old gentleman's conceited stupidity.
Ah, here he is, my hero, said Kutuzov to a portly, handsome, dark-haired general who was just ascending the knoll.
This was Raevsky, who had spent the whole day at the most important part of the field of Borodino.
Raevsky reported that the troops were firmly holding their ground and that the French no longer ventured to attack.
After hearing him, Kutuzov said in French,
Then you do not think, like some others, that we must retreat?
On the contrary, Your Highness, in indecisive actions, it is always the most stubborn who remain victors, replied Raevsky. And in my opinion...
Kazarov, Kutuzov called to his adjutant, sit down and write out the order of the day for tomorrow. And you, he continued, addressing another, ride along the line and announce that tomorrow we attack.
While Kutuzov was talking to Raevsky and dictating the order of the day, Voltsogen returned from Barclay and said that General Barclay wished to have written confirmation of the order the field marshal had given.
Kutuzov, without looking at Voltsogen, gave directions for the order to be written out, which the former commander-in-chief, to avoid personal responsibility, very judiciously wished to receive.
And by means of that mysterious, indefinable bond which maintains throughout an army one and the same temper, known as the spirit of the army, woo-woo, and which constitutes the sinew of war. Kutuzov's words, his order for a battle next day, immediately became known from one end of the army to the other. See, that's how they all knew what Aragorn was saying, because you didn't need to hear the words. You could feel it within the spirit of the army.
Is that really what is being implied?
I mean, he's saying that, like, the word spread. Kutuzov's words spread through the spirit of the army.
But like osmosis is what we're talking about?
I think
or
we're
are we
talking
about like, hey,
gossip.
did you hear?
I think it's gossip. But maybe it's like, just,
They can feel the force.
yeah, like a what color mist do you think?
Kutuzov's orders? What?
Yeah.
The spirit of the Russian army is?
Yeah. Do you think it's like, is it like purple? I'm getting purple. And it's like, and then they just knew.
Are we talking about the spirit of the Russian army's color? Or
Yeah.
what's the mist?
Well, wait, is like spirit of the army, does it have its own distinct color regardless of whose army it is? Or is it, that's the mist. Yeah, that's what I'm talking. It's like that knowing mist, you know?
I'm thinking like burgundy.
Ooh, okay.
But purple is what you said, right?
I said purple because it's not like it's not, I would think red because like obvious choice, but it's not bloody.
I'm sorry, obvious choice? Oh, because it's Russian.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together. Wow, I'm a genius.
So I was thinking purple because like.
I was thinking like, I wasn't thinking, I am thinking now. Dark red, like earth red, like terracotta almost.
Yeah, okay. Because I like that. Because it's not like oh, everything's gonna be fine, guys.
No.
But there's some like grit and like, yeah, that's right. Take that in, and there'll be a battle tomorrow.
Should we talk more about it?
No, I think we're good.
I think we could,
We can keep going.
yeah,
Okay.
unless,
I'm sure it'll come up again.
okay. It was far?
Yeah.
It was far from being the same words or the same order that reached the farthest links of that chain. It was more of a mist, really. What? The tales passing from mouth to mouth at different ends of the army did not even resemble what Kutuzov had said, but the sense of his words spread everywhere because what he said was not the outcome of cunning calculations, but of a feeling that lay in the commander-in-chief's soul as in that of every Russian.
And on learning that tomorrow they were to attack the enemy and hearing from the highest quarters a confirmation of what they wanted to believe, the exhausted, wavering men felt comforted and
Inspirited.
They were inspired.
But more than inspired, they were inspirited.
Yeah.
Like
The spirit went
inseminated.
inside of them.
Like inseminated.
Yeah, pretty much.
Inspirited. Inspirited. Inspirited, not inspirited. What? Inspirited. I've never heard this word
Me
ever.
neither. I think it's a made-up word.
I'm going to use it.
I'm so inspirited right now.
I feel ready. I feel inspirited. Yeah,
Because
I'm
you're
gonna use
in
it.
spirit. Yeah.
That's a good word.
Great.
Are you ready for 36?
I am.
Are you ready for the jelly of 36?
Go with Prince Andrew.
Chapter 36. Are you guessing that because the first words of the chapter are Prince Andrew?
No, I wouldn't look ahead. I just felt it. Yeah.
There was, you breathed, something felt like it came
I was like,
inside you.
Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's here. His presence. Do you feel it? It's almost like we're not reading the book. The book is reading us.
This is getting Gatloff. Should we ask the book to read chapter 36 or? Chapter 36. Shh. Tell me. Oh my god. Prince Andrew's regiment was among the reserves which till after 1 o'clock was stationed inactive behind Semenovsk under heavy artillery fire. Toward 2 o'clock, the regiment, having already lost more than 200 men, was moved forward into a trampled oak field in the gap between Semenovsk and the Knoll battery, where thousands of men perished that day and on which an intense concentrated fire from several hundred enemy guns was directed between 1 and 2 o'clock.
Without moving from that spot or firing a single shot, the regiment here lost another third of its men. From in front and especially from the right, in the unlifting smoke, the guns boomed, and out of the mysterious domain of smoke that overlay the whole space in front, quick hissing cannonballs and slow whistling shells flew unceasingly. At times, as if to allow them a respite, a quarter of an hour passed during which the cannonballs and shells all flew overhead, but sometimes several men were torn from the regiment in a minute, and the slain were continually being dragged away and the wounded carried off.
I keep wondering who it is that's picking up the bodies or picking up the wounded. Do you think it's like there's certain people's job who is just to do that?
Or it's just like members of the
Whoever's-
regiment
yeah.
who are like, can't leave that person up there.
Right.
I'm not sure. It's a good question.
With each fresh blow, less and less chance, because you have to have like 2 people to carry every stretcher.
Yeah. And going back, like, he might get killed.
So it's almost
Just
like you
trying
have
to
to have
collect the
twice the army, twice the number of soldiers you have to have on the side waiting to just collect soldiers.
They're just collectors.
I don't know. Because it seems really silly. It would be like, I mean, obviously they're all soldiers, but it seems kind of it would be nutty to like expect the people who are maintaining the fight to like stop and do this other job.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. If people are falling, shit is dangerous and they need to be doing what they're supposed to be doing.
I don't think it's someone's specific job. I'm just thinking how I would organize it. Would it just kind of be like an understanding, like within the core? What would within the sections would be like?
What would the
collect
understanding
your,
be?
like collect your men?
But what if they're all dead?
Then they can be collected. I don't know.
Right,
Then-
but everybody
and then
has to
who
be
is-
collected.
Yeah, I don't know.
With each fresh blow, less and less chance of life remained for those not yet killed. Exactly. The regiment stood in columns of battalion 300 paces apart, but nevertheless the men were always in one and the same mood. All alike were taciturn and morose. Talk was rarely heard in the ranks, and it ceased altogether every time the thud of a successful shot or the cry of stretchers was heard. Most of the time, by their officer's order, the men sat on the ground. Once, having taken off his shako, carefully loosened the gathers of its lining and drew them tight again. Another, rubbing some dry clay between his palms, polished his bayonet. Another fingered the strap and pulled the buckle of his bandolier, while another smoothed and refolded his leg bands and put his boots on again. Some built little houses of the tufts in the plowed ground, or plaited baskets from the straw in the cornfield. All seemed fully absorbed in these pursuits. When men were killed or wounded, when rows of stretchers went past, when some troops retreated, and when great masses of the enemy came into view through the smoke, no one paid any attention to these things. But when our artillery or cavalry advanced, or some of our infantry was seen to move forward, words of approval were heard on all sides. But the liveliest attention was attracted by occurrences quite apart from and unconnected with the battle. It was as if the minds of these morally exhausted men found relief in everyday commonplace occurrences. A battery of artillery was passing in front of the regiment. The horse of an ammunition cart put its leg over a trace. "Hey, look at the trace horse! Get her leg out, she'll fall! Ah, they don't see it!" came identical shouts from the ranks all along the regiment. Another time, general attention was attracted by a small brown dog coming heaven knows whence, which trotted in a preoccupied manner in front of the ranks with tail stiffly erect, till suddenly a shell fell close by, when it yelped, tucked its tail between its legs, and darted aside. Yells and shrieks of laughter rose from the whole regiment. But such distractions lasted only a moment, and for 8 hours the men had been inactive, without food, in constant fear of death, and their pale and gloomy faces grew even paler and gloomier.
Prince Andrew, pale and gloomy like everyone in the regiment, paced up and down from the border of one patch to another, at the edge of the meadow beside an oat field, with head bowed and arms behind his back. There was nothing for him to do and no orders to be given. Everything went on of itself. The killed were dragged from the front, the wounded carried away, and the ranks closed up. If any soldiers ran to the rear, they returned immediately and hastily. At first, Prince Andrew, considering it his duty to rouse the courage of the men and to set them an example, walked about among the ranks. But he soon became convinced that this was unnecessary and that there was nothing he could teach them. All the powers of his soul, as of every soldier there, was unconsciously bent on avoiding the contemplation of the horrors of their situation. He walked along the meadow, dragging his feet, wrestling the grass, and gazing at the dust that covered his boots. Now he took big strides, trying to keep to the footprints left on the meadow by the mowers. Then he counted his steps, calculating how often he must walk from one strip to another to walk a mile. Then he stripped the flowers from the wormwood that grew along a boundary rut, rubbed them in his palms, and smelled their pungent, sweetly bitter scent. Nothing remained of the previous day's thoughts. He thought of nothing. He listened with wary ears to the ever-recurring sounds, distinguishing the whistle of flying projectiles from the booming of the reports, glanced at the tiresomely familiar faces of the men of the 1st Battalion, and waited. Here it comes. This one is coming our way again, he thought, listening to an approaching whistle in the hidden region of smoke. One, another, again. It has hit. He stopped and looked at the ranks. No, it has gone over. But this one has hit. And again he started trying to reach the boundary strip in 16 paces. A whiz and a thud. 5 paces from him, a cannonball tore up the dry earth and disappeared. A chill ran down his back. Again he glanced at the ranks. Probably many had been hit. A large crowd had gathered near the 2nd Battalion.
Adjutant, he shouted. Order them not to crowd together.
The adjutant...
Make sure they aren't serried. That's not the
That's not what it says, but it should. The adjutant, having obeyed this instruction, approached Prince Andrew. From the other side, a battalion commander rode up.
Look out, came a frightened cry from a soldier, and like a bird whirring in rapid flight and alighting on the ground, a shell dropped with little noise within 2 steps of Prince Andrew, and close to the battalion commander's horse. The horse first, regardless of whether it was right or wrong to show fear, snorted, reared, almost throwing the major, and galloped aside. The horse's terror infected the men.
Lie down, cried the adjutant, throwing himself flat on the ground.
Prince Andrew hesitated. The smoking shell spun like a top between him and the prostrate adjutant, near a wormwood plant between the field and the meadow.
Can this be death? Thought Prince Andrew, looking with a quite new, envious glance at the grass, the wormwood, and the streamlet of smoke that curled up from the rotating black ball. I do not wish to die. I love life. I love this grass, this earth, this air. He thought this, and at the same time he remembered that people were looking at him.
It's shameful, sir, he said to the adjutant. What?
He did not finish speaking. At one and the same moment came the sound of an explosion, a whistle of splinters as from a breaking window frame, a suffocating smell of powder, and Prince Andrew started to one side, raising his arm, and fell on his chest. Several officers ran up to him. From the right side of his abdomen, blood was welling out, making a large stain on the grass.
The militiamen with stretchers who were called up stood behind the officers. Prince Andrew lay on his chest with his face in the grass, breathing heavily and noisily.
What are you waiting for? Come along.
The peasants went up and took him by his shoulders and legs, but he moaned piteously, and exchanging looks, they set him down again.
Pick him up, lift him, it's all the same, cried someone.
See, there's peasants lifting him.
Yeah.
I don't They again took him by the shoulders and laid him on the stretcher.
Maybe it's just because of the doctors. Maybe there's
Before that it said the
Red
militia.
Cross, you know? Yeah, I don't know. Oh God, my God, what is it? Stomach? That means death. My God, voices among the officers were heard saying.
It flew a hair's breadth past my ear, said the adjutant.
The peasants, adjusting the stretcher to their shoulders, started hurriedly along the path they had trodden down to the dressing station.
Keep in step! Ah, those peasants, shouted an officer, seizing by their shoulders and checking the peasants, who were walking unevenly and jolting the stretcher.
Get into step. Fedor, I say. Fedor, said the foremost peasant.
Now that's right, said the one behind joyfully when he had got into step.
Your Excellency. Hey, Prince, said the trembling voice of Timokin, who had run up and was looking down on the stretcher.
Prince Andrew opened his eyes and looked up at the speaker from the stretcher, into which his head had sunk deep, and again his eyelids drooped.
The militiamen carried Prince Andrew to the dressing station by the wood, where wagons were stationed. The dressing station consisted of 3 tents with flaps turned back, pitched at the edge of a birch wood. In the wood, wagons and horses were standing. The horses were eating oats from their movable troughs, and sparrows flew down and pecked the grains that fell. Some crows, scenting blood, flew among the birch trees, cawing impatiently. Around the tents, over more than 5 acres, blood-stained men in various garbs stood, sat, or lay. Around the wounded stood crowds of soldier stretcher-bearers with dismal and attentive faces, whom the officers, keeping order, tried in vain to drive from the spot. Disregarding the officers' orders, the soldiers stood leaning against their stretchers and gazing intently, as if trying to comprehend the difficult problem of what was taking place before them. From the tents came now loud, angry cries, and now plaintive groans. Occasionally, dressers ran out to fetch water, or to point out those who were to be brought in next. The wounded men awaiting their turn outside the tents groaned, sighed, wept, screamed, swore, or asked for vodka. Some were delirious. Prince Andrew's bearers, stepping over the wounded who had not yet been bandaged, took him, as a regimental commander, close up to one of the tents and there stopped, awaiting instructions. Prince Andrew opened his eyes and for a long time could not make out what was going on around him. He remembered the meadow, the wormwood, the fields, the whirling black ball, and a sudden rush of passionate love of life. 2 steps from him, leaning against a branch and talking loudly and attracting general attention, stood a tall, handsome, black-haired, non-commissioned officer with a bandaged head. He had been wounded in the head and leg by bullets. Around him, eagerly listening to his talk, a crowd of wounded and stretcher-bearers was gathered.
"We kicked him out from there so that he chucked everything. We grabbed the king himself," cried he, looking around him with eyes that glittered with fever. "If only reserves had come up just then, lads, there wouldn't have been nothing left of him, I tell you, surely."
Like all the others near the speaker, Prince Andrew looked at him with shining eyes and experienced a sense of comfort. But isn't it all the same now, thought he, and what will be there, and what has there been here? Why was I so reluctant to part with life? There was something in this life I did not and do not understand.
He and Natasha both are like, it's all the same. It's all the same now.
Isn't it all the same now?
Like that phrasing. Exactly.
Mm.
Chapter 37?
Mm-hmm.
One of the doctors came out of the tent in a blood-stained apron, holding a cigar between the thumb and little finger of one of his small, blood-stained hands, so as not to smear it. He raised his head and looked about him, but above the level of the wounded men. He evidently wanted a little respite. After turning his head from right to left for some time, he sighed and looked down.
All right, immediately, he replied to a dresser who pointed Prince Andrew out to him, and he told them to carry him into the tent.
Murmurs arose among the wounded who were waiting.
It seems that even in the next world, only the gentry are to have a chance, remarked one.
Prince Andrew was carried in and laid on a table that had only just been cleared, and which a dresser was now washing down. Prince Andrew could not make out distinctly what was in that tent. The pitiful groans from all sides and the torturing pain in his thighs, stomach, and back distracted him. All he saw about him merged into a general impression of naked, bleeding human bodies that seemed to fill the whole of the low tent, as a few weeks previously on that hot August day such bodies had filled the dirty pond beside the Smolensk road. Yes, it was the same flesh, the same chair, a cannon. The sight of which had even then filled him with horror, as by a presentiment.
There were 3 operating tables in the tent. 2 were occupied, and on the 3rd they placed Prince Andrew. For a little while he was left alone and involuntarily witnessed what was taking place on the other 2 tables. On the nearest one sat a Tartar, probably a Cossack. Is that pronounced right? Tartar? Tartar.
I've never heard Tartar. I've only ever heard Tartar.
I love how you phrase that. You're like, I've never heard it said that way. Not
because
to correct
I
you.
know. I don't know. It could be.
Tartar.
That feels right, don't it?
It does. Probably a Cossack, judging by the uniform thrown down beside him. 4 soldiers were holding him, and a spectacled doctor was cutting into his muscular brown back.
Oh, grunted the Tartar, and suddenly lifting up his swarthy, snub-nosed face with its high cheekbones and baring his white teeth, he began to wriggle and twitch his body and utter piercing, ringing, and prolonged yells. On the other table, around which many people were crowding, a tall, well-fed man lay on his back with his head thrown back. His curly hair, its color, and the shape of his head seemed strangely familiar to Prince Andrew. Several dressers were pressing on his chest to hold him down. One large, white, plump leg twitched rapidly all the time, with a feverish tremor. The man was sobbing and choking convulsively. 2 doctors, one of whom was pale and trembling, were silently doing something to this man's other gory leg. When he had finished with the Tartar, whom they covered with an overcoat, the spectacled doctor came up to Prince Andrew, wiping his hands.
He glanced at Prince Andrew's face and quickly turned away.
Undress him! What are you waiting for? He cried angrily to the dressers. They were like, but not undressers.
Imagine there was like undressers too. His very first, remotest recollections of childhood came back to Prince Andrew's mind when the dresser with sleeves rolled up began hastily to undo the buttons of his clothes and undressed him. The doctor bent down over the wound, felt it, and sighed deeply. Then he made a sign to someone, and the torturing pain in his abdomen caused Prince Andrew to lose consciousness. When he came to himself, the splintered portions of his thigh bone had been extracted, the torn flesh cut away, and the wound bandaged. Water was being sprinkled on his face. As soon as Prince Andrew opened his eyes, the doctor bent over, kissed him silently on the lips, and hurried away.
What?
You know, as doctors do.
I mean, if nothing else, like, you're gonna give that's like way to pass the virus.
Yes.
If anyone's like way to make everything worse with the vulnerable.
But you know,
patient.
it's like, oh, make the boo and then kiss it.
On its mouth? Silently?
No, quieter.
After the sufferings he had been endured, I mean, if that's remotely normal, that's very sweet.
Well, I think Europeans kiss each other in the mouth.
These people are strangers.
Yeah.
One of them's not able to give consent.
I think it's because they think he's gonna die. Right. That doesn't make it better.
Europeans.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that requires like
familiarity
and like mutual participation.
I think it was meant as a nice thing.
Imagine being like after the sufferings he had been enduring, Prince Andrew enjoyed a blissful feeling such as he had not experienced for a long time.
He's like, yeah.
Because he just got some in a very unexpected place. All the best and happiest moments of his life, especially his earliest childhood, when he used to be undressed and put to bed, and when leaning over him, his nurse sang him to sleep, and he, burying his head in the pillow, felt happy in the mere consciousness of life returned to his memory, not merely as something past, but as something present.
The doctors were busily engaged with the wounded man, the shape of whose head seemed familiar to Prince Andrew. Well, they were lifting him up and trying to quiet him.
Show it to me! Oh! His frightened moans could be heard, subdued by suffering and broken by sobs.
I shouldn't have looked ahead. Okay.
I didn't. You're gonna like it. Okay,
Like a doctor's kiss.
What?
I don't know.
You're gonna like it.
Maybe
like
doctors
kiss?
don't. Maybe most doctors do not kiss their patients on the mouth. It's just like the signature of this one doctor who's like.
So he like gets credit for who he saves because every person later will be like, I don't know who he was, but he made out with me, and everyone will be like, oh
yeah,
pure.
That's his signature. Yeah. Hearing those moans, Prince Andrew wanted to weep, whether because he was dying without glory, or because he was sorry to part with life, or because of those memories of a childhood that could not return, or because he was suffering and others were suffering, and that man near him was groaning so piteously. He felt like weeping, childlike, kindly, and almost happy tears.
The wounded man was shown his amputated leg, stained with clotted blood and with the boot still on.
Oh, he sobbed like a woman.
The doctor, who had been standing beside him, preventing Prince Andrew from seeing his face, moved away.
My God, what is this? Why is he here? Said Prince Andrew to himself.
In the miserable sobbing, enfeebled man whose leg had just been amputated, he recognized Anatoly Kuragin. Men were supporting him in their arms and offering him. Do you think he's about to duel him?
Yes.
I mean,
There's
that
gonna
was
be
what
a
was
hospital
happening.
duel. Yeah, I know. No, but now they're compatriots.
We'll see.
Mm.
I think there just might be a fucking duel right in the hospital. He recognized Anatoly Kuragin. Men were supporting him in their arms and offering him a glass of water, but his trembling, swollen lips could not grasp its rim. Anatoly was sobbing painfully. Yes, it is he. Yes, that man is somehow closely and painfully connected with me, thought Prince Andrew, not yet clearly grasping what he saw before him. What is the connection of that man with my childhood and life? He asked himself without finding an answer. And suddenly, a new, unexpected memory from that realm of pure and loving childhood presented itself to him. He remembered Natasha as he had seen her for the first time at the ball in 1810, with her slender neck and arms and with a frightened, happy face ready for rapture and love and tenderness for her, stronger and more vivid than ever, awoke in his soul. He now remembered the connection that existed between himself and this man who was dimly gazing at him through tears that filled his swollen eyes. He remembered everything, and ecstatic pity and love for that man overflowed his happy heart.
Prince Andrew could no longer restrain himself and wept tender, loving tears for his fellow men,
You were right.
for himself, and for his own and their errors.
Compassion, love of our brothers, for those who love us and for those who hate us, love of our enemies. Yes, that love which God preached on earth and which Princess Mary taught me and I did not understand. That is what made me sorry to part with life. That is what remained for me had I lived. But now it is too late. I know it.
It's not too late.
It better not be.
Seriously. I know this is like not the thing to say after that, but I think it's weird that he thinks of his sister as Princess Mary.
Totally. I was like, for a second, I was
Yes,
like, wait,
Princess
how did they know each other?
Mary. Yeah, exactly.
That's his sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is very weird.
Right. Hello, princess. I'm sure that's how they greet one another.
That's what Princess Mary had been talking about. That's very weird.
Especially if he's like in kind of this like childhood state.
I've never, has anyone ever said Mary?
I think so.
No. Not even Tolstoy.
Strange.
Strange. 8:37.
Want to call it? That's a good place to end.
Is it?
Isn't it? I will say there's 40 chapters. I don't know why I'm keeping such close eye on. I know why. There's 40 chapters. Maybe 39.
Let's call this shit. As if one day is going to help me.
I'm supposed to have my roll up.
You know, I was wondering if you had committed to having your roll up by the end of book 10, or if you had committed to having your roll up by the end of the quarantine. And I couldn't remember because I was like, ooh, maybe she's also fucked. And then I was like, no, I think she committed to having it by the end of quarantine.
I think so. I think it was vague, but I think it was end of book 10.
But you've been working on it.
It's true. Not focused. Like when there's been ab workouts, I've been like, oh good.
Oh man, this is happening.
Good. Like, oh, we're doing it. Like I've been having to do roll-ups, but I'm still like yeah. I don't know how to do it. How are these people just like No. How? Could you once upon a time not do it?
Probably, yeah. It's usually just that one bit.
That little section where you're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you like I said, if you roll down slowly, you'll find it.
Yeah.
And just try to smooth it out. Smooth it out. I find core. One of the reasons I love doing core is it's one of the most gratifying types of strength. I don't know why. I think it's so like. I mean, it's so cool, you know.
so central.
It's so central.
Yeah. But that's probably true. Like, it affects everything. It makes everything easier and more. Like,
Yeah, but I
it
don't
means
think
you can
that's
do
why.
all the exercises probably much more the way they're meant to be done if you have a strong core. Right?
I don't know. It just makes me feel more badass than anything else, than other body parts or whatever. Like, I love the feeling of like being able to do it. It hurts so good. I love the way it hurts.
Where it hurt like up here. And that made me realize like very few ab workouts, unless I've been doing them wrong. Like, everyone's worried about like low abs. At least that's what it feels like. They want to get down here. And no one ever talks about targeting up here.
I think it's the opposite.
Really?
I think most crunchers target up.
So I guess I was like, whoa, I've never felt these muscles.
Yeah, because all like, so crunches are either like focused, except for bicycles, which are a little bit of a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's either your obliques, or it's your abs in general, or it's low abs. And when it's abs in general, that generally means the upper parts. So just the like regular crunches, for example, that's mostly up job. In fact, I can only think of like 2 or 3 exercises for your low abs. Yeah, there's not a lot. There's not a lot compared to what there is for like other abs. Yeah. Abs.
I'm warming to them. I don't know if I like any of them. I like arms. It's a weird place to like.
Why?
I guess not. I think of guys as liking working out their arms.
I think they do.
There's a lot of benefit there.
Men are like overly upper body focused. And women are overly lower body focused.
I don't like butt workouts.
Oh, I love them.
They're great, but I don't like them.
Why?
Like this stuff. Oh, that kills.
What do you mean this stuff?
Like Pilates on your side, and you're like, oh, it's so painful.
I love it. Love it. There are some things I don't like, but there are many more things that I love. Unlike people with whom it's the opposite. All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks for joining. Women have stronger legs than most guys, I think. Do you think that's true?
Women have stronger legs, yeah, for certain.
For certain.
Yeah. They have an easier time with like lunges, squats, stuff like that.
Okay. Bye.
Men have little chicken legs.
It's true, actually, when I think about it.
They do.